Okay, here's number 4, writing a complete program here. And before I even start writing code down here, I am going to plan out what I'm going to do by reading the instructions carefully and circling and labeling things. So write a program that asks the user for a number of type double. So I'm going to go through and just read this whole description. I took a look at the table and kind of get the idea of what I'm supposed to do. And now I'm going to go back and say, what are the steps that I need to do? Well, first I need to ask the user for a number of type double. So I'm just going to underline that, and this is step 1. Okay, then I will, this part, using the following table, do the math to determine the number of hours the user should spend, blah, 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 blah. This is 2. And it looks like number of hours, so this is a number of hours, and then biking, swimming, and what I'm doing is thinking variables. What am I storing? I'm storing amount of hours for biking, swimming, and running. Okay, then I must report, and that's step 3. And then I'm just going to put 1 digit after the decimal point. Okay, so now I have a bunch of underlines, and I'm going to go ahead and start writing. Usually I like to leave myself a little room at the top for when I forget the import statement, but of course since I'm thinking about that I'm going to remember the import statement, so here's one import statement that would work. Here's my class declaration of whatever we want. It doesn't say I have to really adhere to any format because we don't know what the file name is, so throw caution to the wind. Name the class what you want. Okay, now I'm in the main method, but this is where everything's going to take place. So now I have number 1, ask the user for a number of type double. Okay, this is my variables area, so now I'm going to take a look through numbers 1, 2, and 3 that I've listed up above to figure out what variables I'm going to need for any of this. I'm for sure going to need a scanner, so I'm going to make one. Also, it looks like I'm going to need, for number 1, I need a number of type double. That's the total number of hours. So it might be good to put here, double total hours equals 0. I could comma separate and do them all on the same line, but I'm going to try to keep it clean here. Also, it looks like what I've circled on number 2 suggests that I need 3 more variables for biking, swimming, and running. And you know, if you happen to not use them, then you'll just cross them out later. It's not a big deal. Double biking equals 0. And double swimming. Actually, I find it's about as slow. Okay. Running. Okay, that's just me mumbling to myself as I'm coding. Okay, so now I have a whole bunch of variables and I think I'm ready to get going. I'll print out a message to the user. So, how many hours total? Train. And the user will input something which I will now store in total hours. Total hours equals, there's my scan, dot next int. I'm not doing any error checking here. Oops, not next int, next double. I'm not doing any error checking here because I don't have room to do it, I don't think. And it doesn't say I have to do it. Okay, so that gets, now I'm finished with the number 1 above that I've marked number 1. Now I'm using the following table, this number 2, to figure out what values to put in those variables. So the following table has set up an if-else-if statement for me. Here it is. If the total hours is fewer than 80, so less than, I'm going to do one thing. Let's see, running equals total hours times 0.5. So this is another thing to remember, is that to take the percentage of something, you move the decimal point 2 over and multiply by that resulting number. So 50 with the decimal point 2 over is 0.5. And then swimming and biking is equal to the total hours times 0.25. And swimming is also equal to the total hours times 0.25. That's my first if statement. Now if I it's not less than 80, then I'm going to keep going here and say else if it is, let's see, at least 80 but less than 160. So if I arrived at this statement, I already know that total hours is greater than or equal to 80 because it flunked the first test. So all I have to test is the next threshold. So I have to say if total hours is less than 160. Now something different happens here, which I'm going to scroll into view. Maybe. Oops. Let me see if I can see everything. Okay, now my totals or my percentages are different. So I'll write out again running equals total hours times 0.4 this time. Biking equals total hours also times 0.4, and finally swimming is equal to total hours times 0.2. Okay. Now for the same logic as before, if I make it down to this statement, which I'm chaining on, if I made it to here, then I know total hours must be greater than or equal to 160. So I don't have to actually test it because I've already got that information just from the logic of chaining these together, and I can just say else. In this case, it's 35, 30, 35. Running equals total hours times 0.35. Biking is total hours times 0.3, and swimming is total hours times 0.35. Okay, so far so good. Close up my else statement. So that was my number 2. Number 3 is report the hours. Please format your output with 1 digit after the decimal point. That sounds a lot like printf. So now I will do that here. System.out.printf of your total 0.1f hours. Should be spent biking. This is where I'm just gonna have to go over to the next line, even though I can't do it in regular code. Running and should be spent swimming, and then I'll put a new line, and then I will list here, let's see, total hours, biking, running, swimming. Done.